and I'll present the first presentation is called Systematic Review of Online Learning Research from 2009 to 2018. And I'm pleased to welcome three speakers. We have Florence Martin, Tin Sun, and Carl Westing. Is Carl in the room?
No.
Okay, so those were the three authors, all from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. So I'll hand the microphone over to you.
Thank you so much. Our study is Systematic Review of Research in Online Teaching and Learning 2009 to 2018. This study was conducted by Dr. Florence Martin and Dr. Carl Westing. My name is Tin Sun, and I am a PhD student in the Program of Educational Research, Measurement, and Evaluation at the University of North Carolina and Charlotte. Dr. Florence Martin and Dr. Carl Westing are professors at UNC Charlotte. This is a definition of systematic review provided by Martin 2020. Systematic reviews aim to examine secondary data by retrieving, synthesizing, and assessing existing knowledge on a subject in a logical, transparent, and analytical manner. Our study has been published in the journal Computers and Education, and this is a reference of our study. Here are three systematic reviews conducted by previous researchers. Birch and Morawski reviewed research on distance education from 1990 to 1999. Talent Reynolds reviewed research on online instruction from 1993 to 2004. And Zawacki Richter reviewed research on distance education from 2000 to 2008. This table shows the themes of the three systematic reviews. Although there have been reviews conducting in the 90s and early 2000s, there's now review examining the broader aspect of research themes in online learning in the last decade. Hence, there's a need for conducting a systematic review which informs research themes in online learning from 2009 to 2018. Learning research has been grouped into 12 different research themes according to the previous systematic reviews. The 12 research themes have been organized by different levels to underscore the nested relationship that exists. Learner level captures characteristics and outcomes of learners and their interaction within the courses. Course and instructor level elements about the design of the course and the facilitation by the instructor. The organization level acknowledges the contextual influences on the course. The purposes of our study are to examine publication trends in online learning research during the last 10 years from 2009 to 2018, and to compare it with the previous themes identified in other review studies. There are three research questions in our study. First, what percentage of the population of articles published in the journals reviewed from 2009 to 2018 were related to online learning and empirical? Second, what is the frequency of online learning research themes in the empirical online learning articles of journals reviewed from 2009 to 2018? And third, what is the frequency of research methods and settings that researchers employed in the empirical online learning articles of the journals reviewed from 2009 to 2018? Here is the methods section. We followed the 5-step systematic review process as described in the US Department of Education, Institute of Education Sciences, WorldWorks Clearinghouse Procedures and Standards Handbook. The 5 steps are developing the research protocol, identifying relevant literature, screening studies, reviewing articles, and reporting findings. We searched education research complete database using the keywords that are described here. for published journal articles from the year 2009 to 2018. We identified articles from 12 peer-reviewed journals that publish high-quality online learning research. This is a process flow that involved in the selection of articles. We created 6 inclusion criteria to screen searched articles. We initially identified 3,332 journal articles and ended up with 619 articles after duplicate checking and applying the 6 inclusion criteria. A code book was created by the 3 researchers, which includes the 12 research themes that are described earlier, 4 research settings, including higher education, continuing education, K-12, and corporate or military, and 3 research methods, quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. 10% of articles were coded by 2 researchers independently, and the differences were solved through discussion. Data were coded using the computer software MaxQDA. Here is a screenshot of the MaxQDA that was used in the coding process. Here are 3 sections. The upper left corner is the document system, including the 619 journal articles. The lower left corner is a code system. The 4 research settings, 3 research methods, and 12 research themes. Data were coded in this section on the right. Data analysis consisted of mainly descriptive statistics. First, the frequency tables were generated for each of the variables so that outliers could be examined. Then, publication trend of online learning research was also depicted from 2009 to 2018. Descriptive information of the 12 themes, including the sub-themes of learner characteristics and engagement, were provided. Lastly, research themes by research settings and methodology were also elaborated. Here are the results and a discussion of our study. Publication patterns of the 619 studies reviewed in the 12 journals were presented here in this table. The international review of research in open and distributed learning had the highest number of publications in our review. Overall, about 8% of the articles appearing in the 12 journals consistent of online learning research. Publication trend of online learning research is depicted in this line graph. When disaggregated by year, the total frequency of publications shows an increasing trend. Online learning research increased across the decade and hit a relative maximum in the year 2014. The highest number of publications occurred most recently in the year 2018. The frequency and percentage of the 12 research themes are presented in this table. A large number of studies are categorized in the learner level, and fewest number of studies appears in the organization level. As for the 12 research themes, the themes of engagement and the learner characteristics were examined the most, whereas the theme of instructor characteristics was examined the least. Since the themes of engagement and the learner characteristics had more than 100 publications in each category, the 2 themes were further categorized to identify sub-themes. The theme of engagement was categorized into 7 different sub-themes, including presence, interaction, community, participation, collaboration, involvement, and communication. The description, frequency, and percentage of the 7 sub-themes are described in this table. The theme of learner characteristics was further categorized into the sub-themes of self-regulation characteristics, motivational characteristics, academic, affective, cognitive, and demographic characteristics. Research setting was categorized into higher education, continuing education, K-12, and corporate or military. We found that a large number of studies used higher education as the research setting. However, only 3 studies were conducted in corporate or military research setting. The 12 research themes by the 4 research settings and 3 research methods were also elaborated. This table shows that the patterns of the 4 research settings were approximately consistent across the 12 research themes, except for the themes of instructional support and learner outcomes. Continuing education had higher relative frequency in learner outcome, and K-12 had higher relative frequency in institutional support compared with the relative frequencies they had in the total themes. Research method was categorized into quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method. We found that approximately half of studies adopted a quantitative method followed by qualitative method. A mixed method accounts for the smallest portion. This table shows that the distribution of the 3 methods were not consistent across the 12 research themes. While quantitative studies and qualitative studies were roughly evenly distributed in the same engagement, they had a large discrepancy in the theme, learner characteristics. There are 100 studies examining the theme, learner characteristics. However, only 18 qualitative studies examining the theme, learner characteristics. The research themes from this review were compared with research themes from previous systematic reviews. 3 out of the 4 systematic reviews found that learner characteristics and engagement were examined in a high number of studies. In this review, about half of the studies reviewed focused on online learning characteristics or online engagement. This shows the continued importance of the 2 themes. 3 out of the 4 systematic reviews found management and organization factors to be least studied. The themes of equity and accessibility was also found to be least studied theme in the Burge and Morawski study. In addition, instructor characteristics was the least examined research theme among the 12 themes studied in this review. This finding shows that there is a need to examine topics focusing on instructors and online learning. As for the 3 levels, most studies fall into the learner level, and a few studies were examined in the course or organization level. So there's a need for organizational level topics such as access, culture, equity, inclusion, and ethics to be researched within the context of online learning. Our study has 3 limitations. The search is limited to 12 journals in the field that typically include research on online learning. Other discipline-specific journals, as well as dissertations and proceedings, were not included. Also, the research was performed using 5 search terms in titles and keywords. If authors did not include these terms, their respective work may have been excluded. Third, coding process could have been biased. Our studies have implications for future research. One of the strengths of this review is the research categories we have identified. We hope these categories will support future researchers. We have found few studies were examined in the organization level. This finding suggests that there is a need for more research and the organizational level to be conducted. The leading themes found in this review is online engagement and learner characteristics. Results of learner characteristics and engagement research paired with course design will have important ramifications for the use of teaching and learning professionals who support instruction. Here are the references included in this presentation. Okay, this is our study. I will take some questions if you have. Thank you.
I'm just going to let somebody into the meeting room. I don't see any questions coming in, Ting, so thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Looks like there's one question.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, from Jenny. I'll take that one. So Jenny, one thing we decided to do post the study is this was a broad study across all contexts. So we got in now deeper in K-12. So that's something we did. Now it's not across the themes, but again, another broad study just focusing on K-12, because in this study we had only 58 studies from K-12. So we were wondering whether they were publishing in different journals that we didn't include. So that is one thing we've done. We've also done a little bit more work on online engagement, going a little bit more deeper on it. So I think any of those themes we could dig deeper into, and I've been getting requests from others to share, our lists that we put together, the reference list, so that others can also dig into some of these topics.
Thank you, Florence. Okay, so with that said, thank you to the first presenters, Ting Sun and Florence and Carl. The second presentation is called A Systematic Review on Online and Blended Learning in Higher Education, Pedagogy, and Lifelong Learning. What are the conceptual definitions, measurement options, and possible conceptual relationships? And we have Martha Cleveland Innes from Athabasca University, Jennifer Locke from the University of Calgary, and Salson Lacal from the Université de Sherbrooke, who are going to be presenting this topic today.
Okay, so the first thing, hello everyone. The first thing I want to say is that unfortunately, because of other responsibilities, Dr. Jennifer Locke and Dr. Salson Lacal could not be with us today. However, two of our three research assistants, Deborah Dell and Paula, Paula, I'm going to do a terrible job with your name, and I actually can't see it because of the bar across the, so I'm going to get Paula to introduce herself and say her name when her turn comes. So this is a very exciting research project that we've been engaged in, and I want to start by telling you why. Our study is a systematic review of online and blended learning in higher education around the supports from pedagogy in reference to the support for lifelong learning. What are the conceptual definitions, measurement options, and possible conceptual relationships? We also followed this systematic review with the Delphi study, which we'll say a little bit about today as well. So what is this conceptualization about? I want to tell you this. From our perspective, and I'd love to hear your response to this, the transition into blended and online learning is significantly different if you are coming from a tradition of distance education than if you are coming from traditions of higher education and traditional transmission lecture-based models. Why is that so different? Well, in the distance education models, the relationship between teacher and student is significantly different. Students have much more requirement to be autonomous, to be self-regulated, self-directed, and self-determined. So as we construct blended and online learning environments, particularly with a bent to what the students are doing and the need for further control, autonomy, confidence, self-direction, etc. The way that blended and online is delivered and the satisfaction and the requirements for the students are significantly different. Where does the lifelong, so I'm going to define hudagogy for you in a moment, which is actually I'm going to say, and the research assistants can shape this as well, that hudagogy is actually an umbrella term to capture those things I just referred to about students, that in distance and online learning, there is a higher level of requirement for active learning and the engagement of students in activities that are where they're more self-managed, self-regulated, self-determined, self-directed. We believe that technology-enabled lifelong learning is going to require those very things. So if we ensure in our online and our blended learning that we are giving students those opportunities, hudagogical practices, then in fact we will not only enhance the experience in blended and online learning, but we will further prepare students to be able to manage themselves in a digital world where technology-enabled lifelong learning is a requirement. So this research was funded by the Athabasca University Academic Research Committee. This was our original research question. And it's interesting to read it now because we've learned a lot of things since we formulated this question. The question reads here, what's the relationship between self-determined learning or hudagogy and all those other things I identified are also in there? It's more than just self-determined learning and technology-enabled lifelong learning that can be developed through blended and online learning environments. And this the study began in 2019. The funding ended in the spring last year, but we have continued to work on this data set and collect data. Lisa Marie Blaschke has been a significant force in this awareness and attention to the term hudagogy. And she says in this first definition that a hudagogical approach in teaching and learning, learners are highly autonomous and self-determined, and emphasis is placed on development of learner capacity and capability with the goal of producing learners who are well prepared for the complexities in today's workplace, she's calling it. We, of course, are expanding that to say lifelong learning is of course important for the workplace, but other places as well. Blended learning, we take the definition from Garrison and Vaughan in 2008. They wrote the most significant piece of literature on blended learning. Blended learning is the organic integration of thoughtfully selected and complementary, I'm going to say in-person and online approaches. And then finally, lifelong learning. Here's the definition that we took from the Council, the European Union. It's all general education, vocational and training, non-formal education, informal learning undertaken throughout life, resulting in an improvement in knowledge, skills, and competencies within a personal, civic, social, and/or employment-related perspective. I'm going to say it can also mean very formal education as well. It includes the provision of counseling and guidance services. So there's some infrastructure needs according to this group in defining it. It was interesting to see the first presentation. Thank you for that, and the approach to a systematic literature review. We took our original cues from Pettigrew and Roberts, but we're also informed by Newman and Dickerson because we felt their steps actually identified better what it is we did. We first formulated our review question and then began searching searching for and selecting studies. We coded our 3 research assistants, dutifully coded with a lot of granularity to describe the studies. We assessed study quality and relevance, synthesized the results, and derived conclusions and the implications from what we saw. What we were trying to do, here's a broadening of the question, is we wanted to know how these notions of blended and online learning, pedagogy, and lifelong learning are defined, designed, applied, and tested in the literature. So initially you can see we're looking at each of them individually so we can become informed. And then we're also interested in learning how the 3 terms are related to the published literature. And now it's over to you, Deb.
Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Adele, and I'm a doctoral student at Athabasca University and part of the research team working as a research assistant on this project. So I'm going to take you through the next 2 steps, the search and selection and the coding. And you can see from the chart on the slide on the screen that we did start with the 3 major terms, and we were looking at the pedagogy literature for 10 years, lifelong learning literature for 5 years, and blended and online for 5 years. We started with finding 1,140 articles that we then were looking at just through the abstracts for eligibility screening. And by refining that down, we ended up with 422 that we were looking at a much deeper level. And then in the end, took 69 studies into our systematic data extraction. Can you change the slide, Dr. Cleveland?
Sorry, Deb, just 1 second here. I'm having a computer slight. Oh, it does not want to move. There we go.
So while we started with a list of target journals, our initial search was telling us that we had to go a little bit outside our target journals, and we started doing just multiple database searches in order to meet what we were looking for. So we started with selecting and saving those 69 articles to Zotero groups. That turned out to be a valuable addition to being able to work together across 3 universities. And then we started with pre-coding, which meant that we read and pre-coded the PDF text and shared the highlights with each other, shared the annotations, and shared document reports. That allowed us to take single document reports for each article that we were looking at and share it amongst the team. And then we began coding on a shared Excel spreadsheet and used Microsoft Teams. So in an all, I think we learned a lot. I certainly learned a lot and was privileged to be on the project about just working with multiple university databases and deciding on the coding strategies. So just on the screen, there's just a sample of what our coding instrument looked like in Excel at the end. And I'll get you to change the slide again. And then the actual coding, you'll probably have to click again. I didn't realize I left our actual coding looked like taking the article and looking for the type of study, then moving on to look and record with the country where it was being involved. And sometimes because we were looking at distance education, the country of the university was sometimes different than the country of the population being studied. We were looking at the definitions of any of our terms, the measurement options and instruments that were being used to measure the terms, if in fact there was any, and then the context that the study was happening in, as well as the end value if it was reported.
Hello everyone, my name is Paula Arancibia from University of Sherbrooke. So I was a research assistant in this project. I'm going to talk about now how we assess the relevance for the studies that we selected for our systematic review. So when developing the inclusion and exclusion criteria, we came up with these 4 elements for inclusion, which were higher education only, English language articles, and also peer-reviewed articles in order to ensure reliability of our study and to establish the definitions of each of the concepts that we work with. And we didn't have any restriction when it comes to geographical places. So, articles from all over the world were studied. You can see here that we have timeframes for the 3 main concepts of our study. So for heutagogy, we worked with articles that in the last 10 years, because we started the study in 2019. So we decided on this because heutagogy is a rather new approach in the research. So we wanted to track the evolution of this term when it in relationship to blended and online learning, as well as lifelong learning, for which we decided on a time frame of 5 years, notably due to the fact that technology changes fast. So we decided to restrict it to the 5 last years. Also, by narrowing down the timeframes to the ones that you see here, it was easier for us to establish a timeline of how the progression of heutagogical practices were carried out according to these 3 elements.
Oh, just a sec. Sometimes the keys will work and sometimes they don't. There we go.
Yes, so as Dr. Cleveland mentioned earlier, this systematic review was part of a bigger pilot study, a Delphi study that we carried out. So in order to synthesize the results, we decided to select 3 articles that best portray these 3 concepts of our research. So the first article that we decided on was for heutagogy was one published by Blaschke and Hayes, which presented heutagogy in relationship to technology, more precisely to digital media networks. So we thought it was informative piece of work for the participants of our Delphi study. The second article was one published by Song and Bonk in 2016 concerning blended and online learning. And this article was selected because it presented blended and online learning by also including elements of learner agency and self-direction, as well as elements of technology and lifelong learning. And in the same line, the third article concerned lifelong learning, and it was selected because it provided a clear example of how lifelong learning can be enhanced by technology and how this looks like in the life of a normal person. And so these 3 articles synthesize well what we read in the articles for our systematic review. So finally, when it comes to the results that we got and the conclusions, is that after carrying out our systematic review, we found that there was a connection between blended and online learning, heutagogy, and lifelong learning, and that self-regulation, self-direction, and self-determination contribute to success and the outcomes of students when they are studying in blended and online learning contexts. And in this context also, technology can play a key role to enhance lifelong learning, the lifelong learning process. Next slide, please. So here is an overview of what our bigger pilot study looked like, our Delphi study. As you can see, the systematic review was the basis for the study, providing us with the basis, as I said, of the information that we got in terms of our 3 concepts. And after that, we moved on to an initial survey with the participants from 3 different universities. We had a sample of 7 participants, and we wanted to know more about their background when it comes to online and blended learning and how it was implemented by them. And then you can see that there's another stage here, which was interviews, individual interviews with each of the participants. And this is an important part for the systematic review, because the 3 articles that we presented earlier were sent to the participants so they could read them before actually having the interview. The purpose of this was to have a common understanding of the concepts of heutagogy, blended and online learning, and lifelong learning, and how they could make the links between these theoretical elements, if we want, with what they were doing in the practice, to then finish with a digital focus group with the participants from the 3 research sites. So that concludes our presentation. We're open to answer any questions if you have.
Oh, it looks like we're all good. So that was excellent. I thank you both to Martha and to Paula for your presentations and for Ting's first presentation. That leads us to the final presentation in this hour. And our topic is called An Automated Essay Evaluation System for Skeptics. And our presenter is Nicholas Walker. Welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'll launch my slides here. All right, very good. So my name is Nicholas Walker, and this is my presentation, An Automated Essay Scoring System for Skeptics. I think you'll find that the pace will be a little different in this presentation. It's more about a project, a tool that I developed. So I'll be taking you through that and showing you what it does and why I think it works. So I teach English as a second language at a Hunsett College. It's a CEGEP. It's the largest French language college on the island of Montreal. I've won a few awards, and I'm the creator of the Virtual Writing Tutor. It's a website, virtualwritingtutor.com. It's a free ESL grammar checker. That's essentially what it is. And more recently, it's an automated essay scoring system. So I've added automated essay scoring to the grammar checker features. I launched it in 2012, and it's become quite popular recently. I get between 200,000 and 300,000 visitors a month. That's about 10,000 students are checking their writing on the website each day. So that's quite a lot. And I created it to reduce the impact of writing assignments on teachers' correction time. And I didn't do this because I'm trying to help teachers so much, but rather because I wanted to increase the number of writing opportunities for students. Why? Because teachers tend to limit the number of writing assignments they give because of the impact they have on their correction time. Like, the teachers just cannot keep up with the corrections, and so they give fewer writing assignments to their students as a consequence. So I'm going to take you through a demonstration of the website. This is a video I took, but if you go to the website, it does just this. At the bottom of the text area, you can see examples for score essay. So that's what I'm going to show you. What you do is you put a text into the text area, and then you click on the button Score Essay. You have to tell the system what kind of essay it is. This is an argument essay. And you wait 2 seconds and the system generates a score. And it tells you how many words you've written, how many paragraphs, how many sentences, and it checks the essay structure and content. It checks the opening of the paragraph, and it'll give comments in either green or red. Green is for, positive comments, and red means there's something that needs to change. And then it'll check the context, and then the thesis at the end of the introduction. Then it'll check paragraph 2, looking at the topic sentence and words related to argumentation and evidence and sources and support. And it does the same for paragraph 3. Paragraph 4, it's looking for a counter argument, right? It's looking for the topic sentence, like some people claim that tax on food additives, blah, blah, blah. Looks for, a refutation and concession. And then it checks the conclusion, comparing the thesis statement in the introduction to the reformulation in the conclusion. It checks your vocabulary for argument-related words and topic-related words, and it checks for a reference list or works cited list. And then it checks your language accuracy by running the text through the grammar checker. It counts the number of errors, right? And then it shows you the context of the error that it's found, and then it gives you feedback saying why it's an error, and then it gives you a suggestion on how to fix it. And it does all this in just a couple of seconds. Now you can print the feedback out and save it as a PDF. And that's great because it preserves the color of the feedback, which helps students navigate the comments, or you can print it in black and white on your laser printer and hand it out in class. Okay, so that's the tool that I've been working on and I developed quite recently. All right, now I want to talk to skeptics. Listen, I deal with skeptics all the time, right? I suffer from tremendous institutional inertia in my college, in our industry, and people aren't quick to adopt new technologies unless they have to. So I'm talking to skeptics now. Look at these two paintings. They're both painted by Picasso. The one on the left took Picasso 2 hours to paint, and the one on the right took him 25 hours to paint. Now, which one is worth more? Which one's better? Now, this is the same question that Kruger and his colleagues asked participants in their study. And what they found was that students use something called an participants use something called an effort heuristic. People tend to evaluate quality by thinking that the more time that's invested in the creation of an object, the better it is in terms of its quality, in terms of like the higher price that it deserves, and they'll express a preference for things that took longer to make. And it doesn't matter which painting you show them, you can reverse the order and people come to the same conclusion. And this effort heuristic is used by novices, but also art historians. We're all using this way of interpreting value. So I tell you this because teachers are not paid to work hard, are we? I mean, we do work hard, but it's not why we're paid. We're not paid to work hard. We're paid to be smart, right? It's our students who should be working hard. So what does it mean to be smart as an English teacher? Well, I want to talk to you about effective second language pedagogy. The best formulation of good second language pedagogy is this. Languages are best taught by maximizing the number of repetitions of meaningful messages, right? We maximize the repetitions of meaningful communication with a focus on form. Now, what does it mean to focus on form? It means to focus on the target structures in the lesson, the things that we're teaching, the linguistic items we're teaching our students to use, and of course, revision strategies, meaning eliminating errors. So languages are best taught by maximizing the number of meaningful repetitions with a focus on form. That's good pedagogy. So here's my question. Who's the better teacher? On the left, we have a teacher who gives her students one essay in 15 weeks in a 15-week semester, like many, many, many of my colleagues. She gives one essay. She's got 150 students like me, and she spends 10 minutes correcting each essay. This generates 25 hours of correction time. On the right, you have a student who gives her students 5 essays in a semester. She's got 150 students like me. So that generates what, 750 drafts. But instead of spending 10 minutes on each essay, she's supervising the virtual writing tutor's automated essay scoring system, and it only takes 10 seconds per draft. With 750 drafts, that means about 2 hours of correction time per semester. Who's the better teacher? Well, if we use the effort heuristic, we say the one on the left. And if we use our definition of good pedagogy, it's the one on the right. Now, maybe that's enough to convince some skeptics, but I don't think so, because what if the machine fails, right? What if something goes wrong? Now, we all use our emotions to help us make decisions, right? And we know that activities with a high risk are assumed to have a low benefit, right? So imagine you're a teacher and you want to give your students more writing practice, more learning opportunities. But of course, you're afraid. If I assign 5 essays in the semester, there's a risk of correction overload if, I don't know, the website disappears, it's no longer available, it stops working. Nick Walker puts a paywall on it and prevents us all from using it. I'm not going to do that. I won't. It's free and forever. But the assumption would be, it's probably not any good anyway, right? That's another heuristic that people are using and prevents them from adopting this very helpful technology. Well, look, it's actually a big job correcting an argument essay, and I'll show you why. There's a title. We need to make sure it's in title case, and an introduction and 2 supporting arguments with topic sentences, and a counter argument, right? And a conclusion. We need to check all that for its various features and correct any grammar errors. We also need to check the reference list or the works cited. Now, this takes time. Now, if we're to get a machine to do it, we have to tell the system where to search, what to look for, right? Tell it to keep track of any matches, right? Any matches it finds, and then give those a score, and then trigger some sort of feedback message. That's how we get a machine to evaluate an essay. And I'll give you an example. So for instance, let's say we tell the system to look for the first sentence of the second paragraph, right? It's the topic sentence. And we ask it to look for transition phrases. Transition phrases are target structures from our lessons. We teach students how to build cohesion by using transition words and phrases. First of all, to begin, above all, those sort of phrases. And discovers in this particular example, there are no transition words in the sentence. The student has forgotten to use them. So what's it worth? We apply a penalty, and then we trigger a message like use transitions to build cohesion in your essay. That's basically what the system does, except with a whole range of different features. And I'll give you some examples, like we can check for cohesion, we can check for topic and topic depth. We can check for complexity in terms of sentence and paragraphs. We can check for the structure of the essay. We can check for targets from the lesson. We can check for words related to argumentation. We can check for citations and other signs of scholarship. We can check sentence length to see if they vary or if they're all the same length, which is rather tedious. So we check for that kind of dynamic element of writing, and the kind of repetition and low lexical density that really boring writing might have. So we can check all these features of quality in an ideal essay. We call them latent. It's called a latent feature analysis. We're looking for those hidden features of a high scoring, high quality essay. Then we take a second essay and we extract all the same features, right? And by comparing the data from each, we're able to derive a score for the second one. That's how the system works. It's correlation, but it works. And this is what my students say. I asked my students using a Moodle poll in November, what do you think? And 77% said getting instant feedback and a formative score, which means like a score that they can use to make revisions, from a machine is better than waiting 2 weeks for a teacher's feedback. This is what they're used to. Now think about it. You write an essay and you don't get it back for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, like how relevant is the feedback? That's kind of out of date, right? 71% said they used the automated feedback to make significant changes to their essays. So that's good. It's prompting revision strategies. And 41% said they learned a lot from the system. I wish that were higher, but it's a good start. Okay, comments were good. Students said things like, I love automated evaluation. It worked well. I got a good score. It was really helpful. And one student said, the fact that we're not imposed a deadline to do our essays and tests really helped me boost my score. And it was easier for me to manage my time. Now, look, I don't give deadlines. I give due dates and I accept work that's a little bit late without giving a penalty. I believe that deadlines and zeros for being late are a pedagogical fiction that teachers use to manage their workload. It doesn't benefit students, doesn't. It benefits teachers. All right. So what do researchers say? Well, they say automatically comparing multiple features of a student's essay, like what I do, to an ideal essay was found to provide useful formative feedback to students. And this is what I recommend. As we're developing the technology, use it for formative feedback. Students love to know how they're doing, and really helps them do a better job on summative evaluations. Automatic scores generated using a range of features are highly correlated with expert human scores. That's good. We don't want it to be wildly off the mark. And using automated evaluation combined with a human evaluation was found to be more reliable than using 2 human raters. I mean, think about this. Imagine you got your taxes done by 2 accountants using a pencil and eraser. There'll be mistakes. But you get 1 accountant using tax calculation software or spreadsheet, and you're likely to have fewer errors and a better result. So assistive technologies for teachers are going to help us do a better job in the future, are going to help us be more reliable in our scoring, because let's face it, we suffer from fatigue, among other things. Okay, there are limitations, and I want to tell you about it. I want to be honest with you about this technology. I have to handcraft every single evaluation. If we change the topic, I have to build a whole new category of vocabulary items, and it takes me about 2 weeks to develop a new test, a new essay evaluation or writing evaluation. I would love to add more grammar rules to detect more errors and reduce the number of false alarms. If you download the handout that I put on Grenadine, you'll notice there's a false alarm. So a little treasure hunt for you. So I want to work on that, and I've been working on it for 9 years, and I'll keep working on it. No worries. In terms of the feedback, I would, thank you. I've got 5 minutes left. In terms of the feedback, I would like it to prioritize like the low-hanging fruit, right? So the important feedback first. Look, if a student hands in an essay and gives it to the teacher, and the teacher just opens it up and says, "Oh, look, you're missing your reference list." You can't pass without a reference list, right? The teacher knows exactly what the greatest impact on your score is going to be, and helps you address those issues first. And so this is something I want the system to do. It doesn't do it yet. The other problem with the system is it doesn't handle chaos very well. Now, you'll notice that cars expect to be able to roll down a very smooth highway, but humans can walk up a rocky mountain path without much in the way of problems. Machines cannot handle chaos well, and nonconformist writing will get a lower grade because it's eccentric. Now, I had a student, even though I told all my students write a 5-paragraph essay, he kept writing 7 paragraphs. He kept splitting the thesis statement off of the introduction and from the conclusion, and it just confused the robot. So this, my programmer assures me we can fix this problem, but it's a concern. Finally, computers don't know anything about the world, right? So computers can be fooled by clever nonsense. So you could put the sentence, "Dogs should drive electric cars to help avert climate change," and the system will accept that sentence without comment because it knows nothing about dogs, nothing about cars, and nothing about the climate, right? Maybe artificial intelligence and machine learning will address this issue in the future, but I'm not there yet, and something I want to work on. All right. Okay, I'm on my last slide now, and here's my final comment. Chuanzi, the 4th century BCE Taoist philosopher, says, "All things have different uses. A horse can travel 100 miles a day, but it cannot catch mice." I think the point here is that we should be careful not to make perfection the enemy of the good. And in this case, I mean good pedagogy. We should focus not on the limitations of the technology, but rather on the benefits it can provide to our students. And with that, I will leave you to ask any questions you might like.
Thank you, Nicholas.
My pleasure.
Excellent presentation. All of your presentations were excellent for this hour. Are there any questions? We have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, somebody's asking me, do you ever include use of the tool itself in the grading scheme in terms of self-directed effort? I ask my students to write 5 essays and I tell them 3 count. They can revise their essays as many times as they like, and they can use the feedback to maximize their score. They must, however, select one of their essays and revise it for a human for their final essay mark. So that's when I read them in detail and give them a proper score. Anyway, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, somebody's speaking.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may.
Yes.
Yes, I just want to say congratulations. I am an ESL teacher now teaching at the bachelor level at the University of Sherbrooke, and I have actually recommended your website to some of the students to double check for their assignments. So that's a great, it's really a great tool for teachers and for students.
Oh, thank you very much. Great. If you find there's missing something or you want improvement, do not hesitate to contact me. I'm super eager to collaborate and to work with teachers to make it work for their purposes.
I think we actually contacted you for another project at University of Sherbrooke. It's a website with resources for ESL teachers and students. It's called Radar L2. So we recommend your website to students and teachers.
Oh, super. Thank you. So it's virtualwritingtutor.com. That's the, oops, why can't I not? I don't know why I can't.
We're asking if you can post that in the chat, and then we are going to close the session for today because our time is up. And I want to thank all of you for some excellent presentations, 3 excellent presentations. Oh, thank you very much, Nicholas. I see virtualwritingtutor.com.
That's
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.